Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 56th Comic Art Live update. And we're just going to be chatting tonight with guest collector Kirk Dilbeck. But I had a wonderful vacation. I know I've gotten a lot of emails, people asking me how the trip was. It was a good trip. Chris Haggard and I had a very good time in Vegas. Probably relaxed too much. Ended up, I got a kink in my neck somehow from oversleeping, as it turns out. I didn't do a whole lot of running around or anything, but I woke up on the last morning and couldn't turn my head in that direction too far, but I'm getting close to 90 degrees now, so I'm almost back to normal. I did a little acupuncture yesterday with the chiropractor, so but it was a good trip. And on Thursday I'll show off some video clips and things that Chris and I or photos that we did while we were there. We went to the Marvel exhibit that was at Treasure Island, which was fun. It was more Avengers oriented from the middle movie, the Ultron movie, but it was still cool to see. I'd always wanted to just pop in and see it. They had a lot of costumes and props from the film, so that was pretty nice. But we shot some video while we were there, just some goofy stuff, so that'll be fun. And I picked up a video from Carlos that sent me some stuff from the other Marvel exhibit that's touring the country, so I'll have that for Thursday as well. But outside of that, it was a very good trip. Nice to be back. And as you can see over here, this big box was awaiting me when I got home. Sitting in the middle of the floor of my office, and it says, "Do not open until the 10/28 live stream of the CAF update." And I will have the gentleman who sent me that package on Thursday with me, and we'll open that package together to find out what's inside of it. So lots of fun things coming up in the week. And of course, don't forget, everybody, that I've got that Mike Oming sale on Saturday at 1 p.m. And I just got all the artwork from him today, so I've got to go through that and double check the pricing and probably ask him some questions. But it's going to be a fun week. Lots of busy stuff. We got Dueling Dealers tomorrow, and then CAF update on Thursday, where we get to find out what is in that box. So, all right, without further ado, let me bring in Mr. Kirk Dilbeck. Hey, Kirk, how are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I can't. I'm happy that we're doing this because I feel like you and I've known each other for a long time. You've been on CAF since 2006, and you knew me. I think probably one of the first times we met was at San Diego, but we also got to see each other when I was co-owner of Big Wow Comic Fest, and you would exhibit there, and you'd be there a lot. So we've known each other for a while. I should have done one of these chats with you months ago, but I'm glad we were finally able to get this thing in. So I'm sure you've seen a few of our chats in the past, and so we like to run the gamut of how you got started in the hobby, and also look at artwork and whatnot. And I just have to tell you, I've always really, really admired your collection on CAF. I mean, I'm a big Avengers fan, and you've got just an amazing assortment of Avengers artwork, Defenders artwork, and you hit all the sweet spots in the time period for me as well when I was reading the books. And so we should just jump right in and kind of tell me about your history with both comics and collecting original comic art, because you really got started a long time ago. So
yeah,
give me the scoop.
We're of an age, and it's funny that so many of the people that I'm friends with, I see Mike Levitt's there, and Rob Frey, a lot of these guys, Olivier, we're all in our 50s, so we all were buying comics at the same time and doing that. So basically my origin story, as you put it, is that when I was in the 4th grade, my dad was developing property about an hour east of where I've grown up and always lived. And my brother Steve was 10 years older than I am, actually 12 years older than I am. He moved in for a little while to help my dad develop property and sit in the sales office. And every time he would go off to work, I would sneak into his room, and it was Enoch there. I would carefully take his Avengers stack out, grab the next issue, put it on the floor, carefully turn it, look at all the pages. And, because he is 12 years older, that would make him, he was, born then in 51. And so he was there from 1963 on. So he had all the comic books. And so I attribute my love for comics. Steve kindled it. And then started getting my own comics in 1974. And then luckily, my buddy Brian Haberlin, he and I went to high school together. And so then we would go to the conventions together. And I don't know how much time we have all the crazy stories, but my first Comic-Con my second Comic-Con actually was where I was so excited driving down there that I got pulled over by an undercover cop and ended up losing my license for 6 months. And my dad was so mad at me, I lost my license for an additional 6 months. But despite that, it was still a fantastic con. So it was very, very fun. So so that's kind of how I got into that. And then literally going to San Diego those first years, I think we're going to look at some of those pieces later, but in 1978, I was 16, 15, no, 15. And there, I don't know if you want to pull that up now or not, or what, or,
Sure.
or we can, do that. But I stood in line, and back then it was at the El Cortez Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing that I always had a good kind of ability to BS and get into cons before they opened. Just because it was fun to do and be able to chat with the artists. But I was able to get in line, and there was George Perez was sitting here, John Byrne was sitting here, Bill Sienkiewicz was sitting here. And back in those days, when you got in line, you just got whoever was open next. And you paid your $15, $20, whatever it was. And I was hugely disappointed that I got Bill Sienkiewicz. Not that he isn't incredibly talented, but being an Avengers guy, I wanted George Perez or I wanted John Byrne. And then he ended up doing this amazing Yellow Jacket for me, which was just, fantastic. So this was my very first commission. That was just outstanding. And then he was there after he got it done, and he took his X-Acto knife and he was cutting out the background and doing all this. And those other two guys are like, "What are you doing?" But he ended up, doing this phenomenal piece for me, which was very, very cool. And then luckily, 2 years later, when I lost my license on that trip, I did get George Perez. So I was able to get that a Wonder Man from him. And then the following 2 years, I finally ended up getting John Byrne. So, and then this George Perez he did it in marker. And so it started fading over the years. So then I had my buddy Brian Haberlin, who, again, as I mentioned before, I'll talk about him a little bit more later, but he went in and colored the piece for me. And then I later had Mick Gray in 97 re-ink it. So so it's still staying in good shape and doing all that bit. So, and then, then John Byrne, I also got him to do a Wonder Man as well, because obviously he was a big Simon Williams fan.
Right. Right. So I saw some people are mentioning problems with the audio, but I think most people are saying that there's nothing wrong with our audio. I'm not sure. Everything sounds fine from here, just so everybody knows. I'm not hearing any crackling. And Kirk, you sound fine to me. So I'm not sure if it's one of us or both of us, or if reloading the web page fixed the problem for everybody.
Okay.
But
I'll rely on your experience to watch the comments, because I'm not used to doing that. So, I may miss people.
Not a problem. That's why I was noticing some people. Jeff had mentioned it as well. All right. Everybody else says, most people say it sounds good. So I'm not quite sure what the problem is, but I apologize. Like I think Mikhail said, he reloaded his app and it worked. So there you go. And let's see. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So maybe before we jump into the art, maybe it'd be a little bit more fun to talk about some of the pieces, distinctly outside of the story. So San Diego was really, so the thing is, okay, you're collecting comics, and what year was this first San Diego show that you went to where you picked up these first commissions?
The very first San Diego show I went to was 1978. Mm-hmm. And then shortly thereafter, we were going to a show in LA at the Shrine Auditorium. And those are some bittersweet times, because we were able to go to, somehow or another, Brian had some link into Frank Miller. And so we were able to buy some Frank Miller covers, Daredevil covers from him, right as they came out. And so we would pay him $100, And then we thought we were the smartest guys in the world because we would go to the Shrine Auditorium and sell it for $300 each. That we were tripling our money.
You were smart at the time.
At the time, it was working out. But yeah, I just think about the Daredevil Hulk cover with the Hulk on it, and just thinking, couldn't we hung on to one of them? That would have been my choice had we done that. But so I'm sure everybody who's been in the hobby a long time has those stories of things that you sold for $300 that are now worth $100,000. They're more. I don't.
Or more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to say San Diego and the first few cons that you went to, what was a lot of people when they're going to their first shows of any size start thinking about getting sketches from a creator. They're going there for the comics by and large. Even back then, I mean, my first cons were probably creation cons around that same time period, around 78, 79, maybe 1980. And while I saw artists there, I didn't think at all about getting sketches. I just wanted to complete a run of comics where I had my list of books that I needed, and that was my focus. I never even thought about artists. So how did you go in with that focus? It
was interesting because I had access to my brother Steve's books. I felt like, okay, I can look at, hold, feel, smell. I love the smell of the old comics, those old books. And then plus, I think Brian was the one that found Bond Street Books in Hollywood. And they were a bookstore down below that had a few comics. And somehow, I'm assuming it's him, I don't think it was me, we charmed him to let us go upstairs. And upstairs was a loft that literally was filled with long boxes and paper boxes and all filled with comic books. So we were able to go up there and just stay, and there we could drink our Dr. Peppers and eat our pizza and sit there and just go through and find. It's like in the 7-Eleven where I bought my comic books, they didn't carry like Killraven, Amazing Adventure, stuff like that. They didn't do the old Airy books where you could get like Sterling's Darklon pages and all that. And so we could discover artists that were there up there in that loft and look at stuff and just have a wonderful time. So when I went to conventions, pretty much from day one, it was always about art. But as a kid, you don't have a lot of money. And even though a sketch might only be $15-20, I could probably get one sketch a con. And there's, one of my earliest art memories as well, which I think was that 1980 or maybe it was 81, 82. I was getting my teeth cleaned, the dentist. I was getting my braces taken care of, and there's 5 boys and a girl in my family, and it was the 3 younger kids that were doing it. And I'm the youngest, and so I got my braces done first. So I went next door to the liquor store, and there was a Rampaging Hulk magazine that had Namor on the cover and a big Hulk head behind it, which my wife always hated that painting. But when I saw that, and when my brother Bruce, who's a year older than me, came out, I said, I'm going to own this piece of art one day. And so one of these things is in the theme of what I'm talking about tonight is a lot of times you can wish things into reality, because I think it was my second San Diego con that I went and that cover was there for sale. And again, for some reason, $300 was always kind of the magic number. And I have no idea how I came up with $300 as a 16-year-old kid or however old I was. But I bought that painting and I had it forever. And I absolutely love that painting until another collector, who I don't know if he wants me to say his name or not, asked me if, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself with the other stuff. So should I stop and we'll talk about that later?
Well, sure. We can talk about it later. I mean, I think that's fine if you want to stop there, but I get it. So, but it's still just impressive that at 16, you were into the art, and, you already felt like you had enough access to books to kind of see all those things already. But yeah, no, that's impressive. I mean, it was not on my mind at all.
And as a kid, I immediately could tell the different art styles of the different artists, and I could pick out the inkers. And then I'm assuming everybody can do that, but I've heard from other people that they couldn't. And so I'm just curious if you could as a kid.
I don't think I looked that closely, to be honest. I mean, to me, I was still very interested in the stories and the art, and I wanted to be an illustrator too. So, but I never looked that closely. And I can even say, probably 4 or 5 years into collecting, and when I got good friends with Mike Berkey, I was always impressed by the fact that he could pick out inkers on artists all the time, and it just, I couldn't see it. I can see it now. I can pick a lot of them out now, but it took a very long time for me to get a good eye for different inker styles. I think that's and it's not something that most people think too much about. They see a Kirby and they think they're all the same, but clearly they're not. As far it's the inker makes a lot of important decisions in things, and even has styles. You can tell a Sinnott versus another inker of the time, but no. So back then, no, I was not a connoisseur of inking styles whatsoever.
And that was crazy. You mentioned Joe Sinnott. I didn't like Joe Sinnott because I didn't like the way he made George Perez and John Byrne. He made him too round, and I didn't like the way that he made them look, even though he was amazing on so many artists. I thought I just did not like him as an inker because those were two of my favorite artists. And I don't think he ever inked Gil Kane, to the best of my knowledge. Maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of interesting. Likes to
right. Oh yeah, no, and I can see that. I think, I mean, those two artists in particular had inkers that were really well suited for them, and Sinnott wouldn't have probably been the best in either case. But I can think of some Sinnott, Byrne, FF artwork and that kind of thing. So I know what you're saying. He kind of rounded things out, but he was a maestro on many other pencilers. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny. Plus, here I was just looking at a comment. Marcus was mentioning that 300 was the limit for regular 70s covers, and that anything more had to be special, or people looked for larger art, and that was kind of the focus of the time.
Yeah, which makes sense. They're again, I don't want to jump ahead. That always leads me to different stories, and I kind of, so you all know, I sent Bill a bunch of pictures and said, well, here's the kind of the stories I want to tell with each. So again, I'm trying not to get chaotic and get all over the place. So sorry for that.
Right. Well, we'll be talking about the art pretty soon. I mean, let's see. Michael mentions that doesn't necessarily agree with the impact on Sinnott, but one thing I love was that all the artwork on Fantastic Four had a very similar look throughout the years, and that's very true. Having Sinnott ink so many different pencilers definitely gave a consistency to the book.
And that's exactly why I and Michael love the Avengers. Was that Pablo Marcus did the exact same thing? Is that he inked a series of amazing pencilers, and to me made him even look better. So he was, even though he had a very heavy style when he did his own stuff, I loved him on almost everybody for that exact same reason, because he did bring that together. And because I was not old enough, I didn't like Tom Palmer's inks on John Buscema and Steve Epting, because I thought he was too heavy-handed, not knowing that right before I started collecting, he was absolutely amazing on John Buscema. So it's a matter of when you enter the hobby and when you start reading books, because even though I was all about the art, I devoured all those comics and read them, and absolutely loved multiple storylines and the whole thing too. So I don't want to say that I didn't love comics, because that's where it came from. But I've always been super art centric, from the beginning.
Sure. Did you have an art background, or what was what pushed you towards art versus? Yeah,
I like to draw, and I thought I was pretty good. And again, Brian shows up, and within 2 days, a week, he's better than I am. And then he goes on and he's got a career in it now. But I mean, it just in a very short order, we were also playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we would make up games, and he would draw everybody's characters. And every time a campaign would end, I would collect up the characters just so I could have his drawings that he made of the characters down there, just because I loved his pencil art style so very much. So it's very, very cool. And so I tried painting a little bit in college, but am a very mediocre artist, and despite my buddy and Philip Tan, he thinks anybody can be an artist if they work hard enough. And I completely disagree with him, because there's certain things like perspective that either you're going to get or you're not going to get. And I don't know, maybe if you slave over it, you can figure out perspective and be able to do all that. But it just, my brain doesn't work that way. So.
Well, but you had the collecting bug earlier. If you were, early on, if you were taking everybody's character sheets from Dungeons and Dragons just to save those, I mean, that's pretty cool. I still have all the ones that I drew back in the early '80s as well. Just because it was always fun. That was a great part of doing Dungeons and Dragons, or some of the like Villains and Vigilantes had that same. You could draw your own character and put the costume. I always thought that was just a unique aspect of that game for anybody who was creative and liked to generate their own characters. I thought that was fun.
And I actually, in Villains and Vigilantes, I came up with my own templates because I was a pretty good artist. And I made my own templates and then copied those to a character sheet so I can add from there and do all that. And so I have some of Brian's stuff on top of my template. It's fun. So it just, kind of cool. But I would imagine there's many in our hobby that, have that crossover of liking, the role-playing games and the fantasy novels, and the science fiction, and it all ties together.
Oh yeah, no, without question. I mean, and I think that it's a common theme amongst those around in our age group. We played a lot of those things, but they were creative. I really, for me, I liked all aspects of those games just because it got you into them as from whether you were on the other side, whether you're the dungeon master or a player. It was an interesting experience because you had to either create the experience for everybody else or just be a part of somebody else's creation. I saw, and comics are the same way, right? I mean, at the end of the day. So let's see. Michael Lovitz wanted to know if do we get a pizza break later?
Mike's been over and eaten pizza at our house. We've got a pizza oven in the backyard.
Very nice.
And I used to, pre-COVID, would have drink and draws at the house where I would have all the local artists would come over. I would make pizza for them. Leah would make drinks, and they would just sit and draw, and I would just make whatever pizza they wanted and doing the whole thing. And it was really fun, and it was nice because back in the day, I had Therese Nielsen over, I had Tim Sale over, I had the lots of Joe Benitez, lots of people are in LA. And so, Tony Rodriguez, Mark DeSantis, lots of people. And so it was very fun to be able to have the ability to do that. And so that's where Michael's coming up with that comment.
Well, no, it sounds like a great time. So, I mean, and we're going to talk about this in another chat but I assume that it was all these interactions with artists that eventually led you to doing work, with repping artists and selling some of their work and that sort of thing. It just you were very personable, but you were around all these creators all the time. So it had to have been an easy segue into doing that.
Yeah, it was. And that's a story. And I guess we'll handle that in the other interview and do that. So
Sure. So why don't we look at some art? Because we do have a lot of artworks to look at, and I kind of kept them in the order that you gave them to me. So hopefully that'll work out. But we can kind of jump around if you want me to show different things. But there's so many awesome pieces here that I'm sure we've got a lot of great stories to talk about. Yeah. So let's see. I'm going to go back up here and show off this Marvel triple action cover.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first started buying in '74, I didn't realize Marvel triple action was reprints until I pulled my brother Steve's comic and went, wait, that's just a different cover, but it's the same art inside. And I absolutely loved this cover. And so these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 covers that you're going to be showing were literally from my first stack of comic books that I bought as a kid in '74. So they're obviously incredibly nostalgic to me because they were the comics I would go back to over and over and over again and read and trace over them to try and pick up characters and do the different things. And so, I I will admit, even though my brother Steve's oldest son is Jack Kirby Dilbeck, I never liked Jack Kirby. And so I love this cover far better than the original cover. So which is kind of funny, and also explains why I don't have any Jack Kirby in my collection. Super nice guy. I met him at a con in 10th grade. I interviewed him, and he was nice enough to sit and answer all my questions. And I wrote a paper and turned it in an English class. And he drew me a little Captain America head. And like a jackass, I turned around and sold that a few years later when I didn't have any money to take a girl on a date. I had to pay for dinner somehow, so I sold that. So.
No, that's too bad. And your mic is cutting out every once in a while. I am noticing that now. I don't know if it's because maybe you're sitting too far from it and it's not picking up your voice. I'm not sure, but you never know.
Okay. Well, hopefully this will be better.
We shall see.
Okay.
But no, this is a beautiful cover. Absolutely. And I read Marvel Triple Action too. And, I bought them because the covers were cool. And at first I didn't realize they were reprints either. So,
yeah.
Yep.
That's what, Gil Kane was always my favorite cover artist. And he did, I haven't been able to pick up any of the ones that he did from that. But this, this was literally one of my first comics. So that's why I grabbed that. I've owned that for a very long time. So.
Well, it's a beauty.
Okay. Yeah, this was my first Defenders comic, and so it again just was super lucky and happy to stumble upon this. And one of the things that I didn't do early at conventions, which I'm really bummed about, was that whenever anybody offered me to do time payments, I never jumped on it, which was super foolish because there was Mitch Itzkowitz had the Defenders, I forgot if it's 12 or 13, but the Defenders against the Squadron Supreme, and it's just an amazing Gil Kane cover. And it was 16 grand, and I thought, I don't have $16,000. And he said, oh, I can take time payments, and I just put it back. Unfortunately, and that's one of my top covers that I absolutely love. But I think I also put it back because I didn't buy that one right off the spinner rack. And so although I absolutely loved it, it's that was part of the reason why. And plus I just hate the idea of being in debt. So
that's funny. So as we know, time payments have been around for a very long time. So I mean, any way to sell a piece of art and get to have the dealer get the price that they want or that their consignor is looking for. It's facilitated a lot of sales.
Yeah. And I never also thought of bringing a portfolio of my art to trade for something that I absolutely loved. That never dawned on me until probably after the 2000s. So that first, 20 years, a lot of things just got left behind simply because I, wasn't savvy enough to figure that out.
So your early collecting, like this cover as well, you were really looking for things that you had already owned or appreciated from reading the comic books. You weren't necessarily going out and just saying, that's a great piece of art, I'm going to buy that. When you were making these really important purchases for your collection, they were ones that were very nostalgic to you because you had read them.
Absolutely. Almost without fail, there's a few things that I've got that are mostly, Gil Kane covers that I never bought Power Man, but and I liked Black Goliath because he was in the Champions. I was always a sucker for the team books. And so I've got a Power Man, Luke Cage fighting Black Goliath, but I never bought that book. But it was almost always what I bought was because I love the comic itself. So.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think even for me, when I first started collecting, and probably most collectors too, once they discover the hobby, there's that, you're just trying to pick up those pieces that mean a lot to you. And clearly, and you were getting covers like these. I mean, those are really special. I mean, you're really, because it is so much of our experience with the hobby, before we're art collectors, is that cover, picking it off the spinner rack or going to the drugstore and having to rifle through the magazine racks that they would have, that would have the title spread out across the racks. And it was the covers that always kind of sucked you in, whether or not they were perfectly in line with the stories or not. But those are the images that, you would always remember. And like when you were talking about that Hulk cover that we'll talk about later.
Uh-huh.
You know, as you're describing it, I mean, I remember it, and I remember the way I remember it is looking at it on the rack at the drugstore. You know,
yeah, and that was the one. Somehow or another, those magazines made it into liquor stores, but they never made it into 7-Eleven. So it was like discovering a whole new set of art that I didn't know existed. Was, you know, going into the liquor store, and you know, I've always tried to just own one piece of art from each comic because there's too much stuff that I love. My wife always says, "Oh, how is this your favorite comic?" or "How is this your favorite?" You know, and
Sure.
so from that Defender 16, I owned the page 1, and then when I got the cover, I sold the page 1. But luckily, the gentleman that I sold it to, reached back out to me years later, which I think was just a couple years ago, and said, you know, I've overinvested in Salvasema. Do you want to buy it back? And you know, and he sold it to me very reasonably, and so I broke the rule on that one. So there's a few favorite books that I have multiple pages on, but you know, I'm very lucky that he reached back out to me. And again, if I don't mention people's names, some people are funny when you mention their names.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'd rather, if you, to err on the side of caution, not to mention, you know, buyers or people that you bought something from, just because a lot of people do prefer to be more anonymous. They don't have CAF galleries, and so I think that even if we both know who the seller was, or you know, it's just better off not putting it out there for posterity, because you figure this chat will be out online for as long as YouTube and Facebook stay in existence, at least. Right. So, but yeah, no, but that's an important part of the hobby. But see, some people live that like that. You certainly haven't. I mean, because you've been, you know, not only just from being a rep, but I mean, I've seen your portfolio before at different shows. I mean, a lot of collectors are very outgoing, and I'd put you in that group of people who like to share. You've been on CAF since 2006, I think. So you've been, you know, supporting the site for a really long time. You have a lot of artwork on the site, and you know, so I appreciate everybody. Those who don't like to be known, and those who do.
Yeah, and I think if you're planning on selling something, your best bet is to hide it. So first to market, you haven't seen this in 30 years or whatever. But I'd rather share my stuff because I want to see other people's stuff as well. Great to see you too, Rich. And and Rich has been amazing to me too, with giving me I've got a what if page by Michael Golden that I wouldn't have if it wasn't for Rich, you know, and it's by sharing what you love, you get opportunities. I've got a story later about Nick, about that same thing. But you know, it's nice because then people see what you like, and then they reach out to you and give you those opportunities, which is golden, you know.
Very true. Very, very true. I think that I think a lot of people have been approached by other collectors, you know, because I always get emailed by people who have art that don't really know what they've got or where to sell it, and I always, you know, point them to the want lists. I know we're going to talk about that later, or I just say search around on CAF. You'll find somebody who collects a lot of that person's art, and maybe ask them. You know, it's usually the approach I tell people who are not very savvy with using the site or with what they've come into possession of. All right, let's here's another piece here. Let's see. There we go.
Yeah, again, Gil Kane was just from the very start was my favorite cover artist, period. And then he did a couple of I've got a lot of what if 3 from the Avengers that he did the interiors. I do have a lot of those pages because again, it's Klaus Janson and Gil, and those two to me are, even though Gil Kane didn't like Klaus Janson's inks on him, I'm sure that's been covered on your show before. I just think he's absolutely phenomenal. And so, and Torpedo is really kind of a super dorky character, but Gil Kane made him look amazing. And Bob Brown did a good job inside too. I know, Michael, you like a lot of weird characters. I'm sure he was in the Defenders when everybody tried to try out for Defenders. That's probably in there too. But so it's just kind of funny. But I just absolutely love this cover, and I think I had 2 or 3 Daredevils that were in that first stack of 20 comics because he was a very early favorite character of mine as well. That wasn't super powerful because some of my friends say, "Oh, you just like the powerful characters," but it's like, no, Daredevil is, it's always been one of my favorites. And yeah, so just, I absolutely love this cover and was very lucky to buy. I think I bought this off of eBay. So it, that was a lucky thing.
Wow. So how long have you owned this one?
I should have my CAF up, but I would say at least 12 years, I would think, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I should.
So eBay, yeah, back when eBay was still actually having some good listings and things like that. Yeah. I have your CAF gallery open, but there's so much art in there. I have a hard time going through.
Right. I try and keep it organized, and everybody's got a different. What drives me crazy on CAF is when somebody says my collection, and then they just have 487 pieces in there. And it's like, yes. So I obviously do it by Avengers, Defenders, Cosmic, Marvel, because those are my three biggest wheelhouses, and then I do have a little bit of, I put DC and Image and everybody else together because I just don't have a lot of it. But other people do it by artists. But I kind of feel like you've already got that feature at the bottom that if you want to see, okay, where's all the P. Craig Russell stuff, I can just find that name and go, okay, that's in that gallery. I can hit that and I can find it. So going by the books themselves are the reason why, I'm trying to make it easier for people to see that stuff. And plus mine does double duty because I'm representing the artist. So they're on this side and then my collection's on that side. But yeah, I think that's the first time I came up to talk to you was just to thank you for creating the site, because for me, I just absolutely love it. And I can go get that art fix whenever I need to by seeing something new. I'm sorry, Jeffrey. I was also a wonderful artist too. For a long time, Jeffrey Moore, I'd come up to him as conventions and it's like, oh, my commission list is full. Oh, my commission list is full. And that's the bane of so many collectors is that, you hit somebody, you stand in a line. By the time you get the name on the list, you go to everybody else and they're already full. So it's kind of crazy. And anybody that's been over to my house, it's because I've been collecting since 78. I've got a 3-car garage that literally is wallpapered with 17 by 11 frames from roof, the ceiling, all the way to the floor, all the way through the whole thing. I
need an invite next time I'm there.
Next time you're in Los Angeles, I'd love you to come over because it is really fun. And initially my garage was for my gym and a little bit of storage. Then my wife finally said, we've got to be able to put cars in here. So then, we did that eventually, but and then another funny quick story is that we had the station fire, which was a huge fire, which we have in Southern California. It's one of our, they're worse than the earthquakes, but we had one that was 2 blocks away. And then, so I was pulling all the art and sticking it in a car. And then Philip Tan, I don't know why Philip was around. I think it was when he lived closer to Pasadena. He came over to my house because he's a gigantic worrywart what can I do? And I said, I gave him a drill and I said, because in my closet, I had all my Avengers pages up, but because they're at an angle, I had them screwed in. And so Philip's there, I'm screwing them on and we're putting them in the car. And I'm telling my wife, no matter what happens, take this car and park it somewhere safe. And she goes, don't you think we should be worrying about the kids first? And it's like, the kids can run. The art can't. And even back then, I just knew that if for whatever reason the house were to burn down and the insurance wasn't to pay off, this could get us a new house. Which is very true. Yeah. So which is good. So just kind of a funny story. And since then, I learned that take really good scans of the art and put that's not a Warlock cover. That's a scan.
Your mic's cutting out on me.
Oh, whoops. There is I take scans of the art and put up a really good scan. And so all the art now is in fire safe just from that experience. But up to that point, I had all the originals on the walls. So
wow. Yeah. But now you still have some art on the wall in the garage though, right?
Those are all scans now.
They're scans now.
But they're all generally the pieces that I still own. I try to, when I sell something, I try and pull it down and put something else up. So, because working okay, or just when I back up as
yeah,
well?
I think it's when you back up. I'm not sure why it's some people's mics don't like activate for some reason. If you're, I don't know, but yeah,
Not
it seems
leaning in.
perfectly fine now. Yes, and don't put your hand in front of your face. Wes did have a question earlier when we were looking at that DD cover, and I guess the other scans were similar, where he was just asking about the yellowing that you see in the scan. I mean, is that the scan itself, or is it just as?
I tried to do the scans directly on what's going on. A lot of the yellowing is, with me. I didn't put the yellowing was there because I scan it when I first get it, and anytime somebody puts it against a piece of cardboard and the acid from the cardboard comes through, that's where a lot of the yellowing comes from. And so, or, it depending on what kind of ink they use, sometimes it's the sunlight as well. But yeah, I have yet to restore any of my art, which is something I keep on wanting to get to. But when you could buy a nice page for $800, it was hard for me to go, okay, I'm going to get this page restored for $800 because I'd rather just buy another page. But now that the art's so expensive, it might be time to, go to some of my stuff that were all the glue's dried out, the word bubbles are off, and the titles are off, or what have you, and get some of that stuff restored. So I don't know how the group feels about that, but Michael's got to run. See you later, Michael. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, he'll catch us on the recording. Yeah. But yeah, I was curious that too, because so often I think when people have a cover of the quality of some of the covers that you have, I mean, they do get them restored, or they're already bought restored because somebody earlier just felt like if they whiten the cover, it'll fetch a higher price or something like that. I mean, I guess knowing that you're probably not going to be letting go a lot of these things when you bought them, it's probably not the highest priority, but for me, I would definitely look into getting them cleaned up a little bit if those are glue stains, or if it's just natural yellowing like you were saying. I think it would definitely improve the appearance of the art, because they can deacidify it, which will make it last another I don't know, 50 or 100 years by taking that stuff out. So that not only will they be able to clean it, but they'll also be able to preserve it for a much longer period than it would be if it just stayed in a fire safe. So
and it looks so much better. In that same group of comics, I did sell one my Gil Kane Marvel team-up covers, and it was Thor and the Human Torch, and it was a terrific cover. But what bugged me is Gil Kane forgot to draw the wings on Thor's helmet, and the inker didn't put him in either. And so that bugged me so much that in that cover there was green tape, like almost like duct tape on the top, on all the sides. And so when I sold it as is. And then I later saw Bashara put it up for a lot more. But he had taken the tape off and retouched everything. Obviously didn't put the wings in because that was just the way they published it. But that, even as a kid, I thought, what is an editor doing? Isn't that their job? Shouldn't they be looking at that? It's like, how did that not happen? And how did the inker not figure that out? So it's just kind of funny how incensed you get as a young teenager.
But it's true. Somebody should have lost their job along the way, whether it was the pencil or the inker or the editor in that particular case. Because I mean, you're a Thor fan. I can see the hammer in the back, and you can't see my hammer.
I don't know if you can see. Whoops.
Here, I can go full screen for you. Oh, I hadn't even seen that because we've always been narrow on the screen the whole time since you've been here. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and there was a really good, because I'm in the real estate industry. I own an escrow company. In the early 2000s, it was really good. And then Therese Nielsen introduced me to William Platonovich, who's this amazing sculptor. And so then I, had him sculpt that for me. And then we had a deal that, if I sold any of them, he would get half the money and I'd get half the money. And so Marvel got wind of what we were doing and immediately put a cease and desist, because I figured if it was only, we're going to sell 10 of them. And he had made 3. And he ended up selling one without telling me, and then told me later guiltily that he kept all the money because he needed it. So then when we got the cease and desist from Marvel, he gave me the extra one. So I have a Thor at home and a Thor here. But yeah, and I tried to get him to do a Hercules. I tried to get him to do an Odin, and he likes to do Western stuff. So, but yeah, super talented guy, and yeah, huge Thor fan. So,
well, that's amazing. It's funny because we've been in this perspective the whole time. I had no idea what was next to the hammer.
right.
But yes, as somebody said, I've got Thor envy because that's I've got the helmet over here and the hammer over there, but I do not have a Thor bust like that. That's amazing. So, Fish wanted to know, is it bronze, resin?
It's bronze, yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
so it's a big old heavy bronze with a marble base. So I don't worry about it disappearing because it'll give somebody a hernia to carry it further than 10 feet, you know? So yeah, so it's very fun.
Wow. Impressive. Very impressive. Yeah. Everybody says I need to have one.
I had the extra one on my site for years trying to sell it because my daughter went to college and I didn't have any money. And nobody ever bid on it. And then once I got myself back in a decent financial position, I pulled it off figuring I want one at home and I want one at work. You know? So,
why not? Right.
Yeah. We're all dragons at heart. We have to have our hoard, you know? So.
Exactly. Dina wanted to know if you saw an Electrosci in an acrylic display, or what was that? I can go back to. It's a dagger. It looks like, but it's hard to tell.
A realtor friend of mine gave me that dagger as a birthday present. That's the fun thing when your realtor friends know that you're a dork, that they give you fun dorky stuff. But my wife looks quite a bit like Jennifer Garner, luckily, and she went as Electra one Halloween, and so we have a nice set of size at home, so that she used as a prop.
But they're not in an acrylic display, though, unfortunately.
No, they're just out for people to play with them.
Oh, man. All right. Well, let's look at some more artwork because I know we've got a lot of art to look at. I know that that's what everybody wants to see. And this is because on this one, I was actually going to ask you about the yellowing on it because I was like, there's almost no, but this is a vellum piece. Now that I think of it, right? Piece,
yeah. So I think the paper that Ramita put behind it, I don't know if the vellum is causing the yellowing or what, but I've had this not that long. I don't know if it's 10 years or I don't know what it is, but it's always been this color. And the other vellum piece I have was that color. And very foolishly, I don't know who else remembers, but Avengers 127 was on eBay twice for like $800. And because it was so yellowed from the venom, I never, let's see, actually cleans up better than paper. Okay, good. So I should get that cleaned up and restored. But I'm afraid that the yellow was on the paper behind the vellum and it's completely stuck to it. So there's no way on earth I would try to pull that off, but a restorer probably would. But yeah, that was my first introduction to Thanos was 127, and I never bought that cover when I had two opportunities to do it just because it was so yellowed, which is, foolish and ridiculous. But again, we all have all those stories. But yeah, I absolutely love that. Avengers 115 was my first Avengers. And then my next one was this 121. I had missed the whole Avengers Defenders War. Okay, Jeffrey, that's entirely possible because every vellum piece I've seen, it has been yellowed. And so you would think somebody would clean it up if they could. But yeah, so I missed the Avengers Defenders War completely. And then 121 was my next, it might have been 120, 121, but in those first 20 books, a lot of them were Avengers because I absolutely loved them. And that's the frustration. I think it was this cover. It's either this cover or the next one was on Heritage. One of those two I didn't buy too long ago, and it was on Heritage at the same time as that really cool Jim Starlin cover of Vision in like 138. I'm not great with the numbers, but they were going in the same auction, and I desperately wanted both, but they're expensive covers, and so you could only get one, and so I ended up opting for either this 120 or the 123 because it was an earlier one. But I would have gone for the other one hard if they had been in separate auctions, but I couldn't. So,
right. Well, I mean, that's an amazing cover, though. I mean, whether it's discolored or not, and somebody suggests maybe it was the glue behind it that was making it yellow more quickly. It's hard to say. And I haven't seen one quite like that before.
Yeah, and I'm thankful of the Vellum because that made it more affordable. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of collectors don't like the Vellum and don't like the yellowing, and if somebody colored a cover, in the 80s or 90s, I don't care. I think they look great colored. If somebody's got the Vellum, or I got Avengers Annual 7-page that somebody attached it to foam core, and it's like, it's an amazing page. I'm okay with that because I got it cheaper, and I still have the page. So I'm not a purist like a lot of people are. So,
right. Nothing wrong with that. And people were mentioning earlier that they like seeing the art in its current state. They're not. It's not as big an issue to them to correct the artwork and to clean it up, to make it whiter. Some people like to see the process, right? And they don't mind seeing glue stains when word balloons fall off and whatnot.
Yeah. Some of the super fun stuff is the pencils on the back of the page. Mm-hmm. When they, I don't know if the artist didn't know what they were going to do and they were doodling, or they got bored with what they were doing, so then they drew something else, and it just it's funny. I've got a Star-Lord page that Byrne did that he's got. The back of it is very funny, so I invite everybody to go try and find that page because he's making fun of himself, and it's a very cool and a very risque drawing of one of the characters that was actually in the Star-Lord comic. So it was very, very cool. So
awesome. Let's here's another beautiful cover.
Yeah, this is another Vellum piece that I absolutely love, and my buddy Rob Frey always says, "Oh, you just like it because you're a Libra," and he was a Libra, and it's like, and I'm sure there was something to that as a kid, but I also thought he visually looked really cool. I really liked Mantis, and the fact that at that point you thought that was her father. And so it was a really interesting storyline. And I love the cover. I think it's dynamic and beautiful and cool. And again, I don't remember which one I bought first, this one or the 121, but I don't think I could have afforded either one of them had they not been Vellum and yellowed. So I'm thrilled to have this one. I absolutely love it.
Well, so and I guess that's true. I don't know if it would really bother a lot of collectors today about the yellowing, but I think really, when people saw the other choices, that certainly that would have turned off some people, and it probably does today too. But I think knowing more, about the restoration services that are out there, although I know I saw some comments that it's a little bit limited more today than it might have been last week, but people just know like they can get something like that and pretty much have it fixed. If there's a tear on a cover on a piece of art, they can usually get those fixed as well. And word balloons can be replaced if people really wanted them, and you get stats made for logos, and those sorts of things too. So I think a lot of people look at things now as they don't have as much a concern about it because they know that they can probably get things repaired properly.
Yeah, and a lot of those early. I'm a big page 1 Avengers fan. I like to go out of my way to collect those. And a lot of those are in real rough shape and stuff's falling off. And so those will probably be the things that, as opposed to the covers, I think I'll try and fix some of those page 1s so they look nicer and everything's together. So.
All right. Well, there's a page 1 coming up. It's not next, but it'll be, I think, the second piece after this one. So let's have a look at this Ant-Man cover. This is beautiful.
Yeah. And it's funny because you don't see Hank Pym in this costume for very long, and I was I had these 20 or so, maybe at that point 30 or 40 comics, and then my parents took us on a road trip, and we were driving through Arizona, and we went into a gas station, And I was wandering around because, when you're getting a little bit of stretch because you're stuck in a car. And this guy in the bottom shelf had this dusty stack of comic books. And my mom said, you can buy one. And then this one was 20 cents. So to me, this was old. So, and I love the cover. So I ended up buying that. And so when I stumbled upon this to be able to buy it, it was my first 20-cent comic at the time. And I just, again, absolutely love Gil Kane. Except when he draws up people's noses. That I can do without. But they're, and so just and I don't know who the inker is on this one. I'm not sure, maybe Frank. But I don't know. But anyways, I just think it's a terrific cover, so I wanted to share that.
No, it's a great one. Great cover. And I think everybody else appreciates that in here as well. And so this was I remember that. What was the note on this one? That this was an early cover that you had owned the comic for, and so
it was my first 20-cent Marvel comic. So that was really stood out in my mind, and just was again thrilled I was being able to find it and buy it, and I've owned this one for a very long time.
And I assume buying your purchase channels are just all over the board, right? You mentioned eBay earlier. Another probably Heritage is probably another resource, but I'm sure you've done a lot of collector to collector deals as well, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the Mike Lovitz was like my heroin dealer for a while because he would show me an Avengers page and say, "Oh, come meet me for lunch." We'd go to Studio City and we'd go to California Pizza Kitchen, and he'd bring a whole portfolio. And he just knew what I liked. And so he'd pull stuff out. He'd go, "Okay, we'll just pull out whatever you like." And then he'd give me a price. We'd negotiate a little bit. And then I would owe him money for a year, making time payments to him. And so it was, I owe a lot of my collection to a lot of people. Mike Lovitz was the first guy. Jay Litzenberg is, a huge friend now. And has been so instrumental in a lot of my Avengers stuff, and he's the nicest guy, and he's not greedy, and he supports my artists as well. So just a terrific human being. And then and those two, and especially Rob Frey, anytime I go to make a big purchase, I call him, or I call him, I email him and just say, "I'm signing this. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? Are you going to go for it? Don't go for it. I want this one." And unfortunately, we all buy the same stuff too, which is part of the problem.
Yeah. It's never fun competing against friends, right? I mean, it's because you usually find out later that you did, and you both end up regretting it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Lovitz has been great. He's never great with prices though, because the very first page I bought from him, I overspent. And he keeps on wanting to buy it back now, but it's like, I'm not going to sell it to you because I love that page. But it just is funny that, but just even been given the opportunity to buy it is huge, and doing that. So which is nice. So and Mike's a good business person because he's owned a lot of art.
Yeah,
and he's very good about letting it go for a profit, and then he buys others, and then he'll let that go for a profit. So he certainly monetized his hobby like I did with mine, so which I'll go into in the other interview. So.
No, I mean, everybody's got their different approaches, right? Either they're a hardcore buyer, seller, collector, or they find other ways within the hobby to enjoy it even more. So, but yeah, Michael's and Michael being an IP attorney, I know he's worked with a lot of creators and done a lot of good things to help make sure that they maintain their intellectual property. So. I mean, I've worked with Michael on a few things just for some trademark things that I wanted to get taken care of. Michael's the guy to go to. So yeah, I've had a good relationship with him as well.
Yeah.
And you know what? I should post. One thing I did forget. I did not put the link to your gallery is in the description of the show. I wanted to make sure I put it in the chat as well, so people while we're chatting, they can go through your CAF gallery and look at your artwork there and leave some comments. You should get a lot of comments tonight, or definitely a lot more eyeballs in your CAF gallery. So let's see. I didn't want to miss. Rick Welch felt that Cinna might have inked that Kane cover.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, and the early Gil Kane stuff. Sinet didn't to me, it didn't read as Sinnott trying to take over on the covers as much with some of the Kane stuff. So that's good to know. So because I would not have picked that. So thank you.
And that's, again, I don't have I have the eye like other collectors do, or knowledge. So all right, so here is a page one piece and colored, and we were talking about that earlier too.
Yeah,
so what's the story behind this one?
It's in my want list. This and the first, I think, 5 pages where Barry Smith inked himself are on my want pages. And so again, my buddy Rob Gray, keep on bringing him up. He's better at ferreting out people that own stuff than I am, and he wanted a page of those first 5 pages. And so he says, the guy's in California, would you meet with him and see if what you can buy? And luckily at the time, he I think he didn't want to spend the money on this page because it was more expensive. Then I ended up with page 4 or 5, I think. And so I met the owner at a restaurant. We had a very nice conversation, bought the guy lunch. And then this page was literally, this was my second 20-cent comic. And I was sacrilegious with it because I love the art so much. I actually cut out page 1, and this page was sitting on my bedroom door, taped to the door, that I loved it so much. And so again, wishing something into being. And so when I had the opportunity to buy it, luckily I thought was fairly reasonable. I'm very much an open book when it comes to stuff. I think I paid $30,000 for it. I know that I think that was a deal because I absolutely love this, even though it's colored, and it is one of my top 3 or 4 storylines of all time. And so, and just to have the splash and it to be at page 1 and Barry Smith and the whole thing. And so thrilled to have it. So.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful. And I think you had mentioned in your description for this one that you thought maybe Olaf had covered it or colored it. And I see Marcus was asking who as well, but you don't know for sure.
I don't know for sure. It looks like Steve Olaf's colors to me, but he didn't sign it anywhere, so I do not know. And hey, Carlo, Carlo sends me emails generally, and so my emails flash on my screen, so I didn't know he was actually here. I thought it was just some other email he was sending me regarding stuff, so that's very funny. So,
thank you. Nice to have Carlo in the chat.
Oh, is that Eric De Los Santos? Hey, Eric.
Yes,
he's another great buddy and wonderful, wonderful person. And that's the nice thing that I told my wife that the people in this hobby, their role models are Captain America and people like that. And they tend to be really good people. And so it's a great community. So proud to be part of it.
No, without question. I mean, I think it's a very unique community. It's not gigantic. Most of you can pretty much, if you've been in it a while, most of the major collectors that are out there, and I think that's what keeps it fun. You do get to develop relationships with a lot of different people. And Eric's somebody that I met in one of my early trips to San Diego, and he is just so friendly. He likes to show off the art from his collection. I mean, and that's why CAF is what CAF is, right? It's everybody who likes to show off their artwork, their collections, and share it with the community. So that's a very. I knew I was home when I discovered original art and first stumbled into the Comic Art L mailing group, and just kind of got a feel for how helpful so many people are. And I think that's one of I think it's a recurring theme in most of the stories when we're doing collector interviews is, the more friends you have in the hobby, usually the better off things are. They'll help you find things. You'll help them find things. And like you said, sometimes you have to do a reality check every once in a while, just to see, am I doing the right thing here? But it's good to have those people to talk with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It makes it a heck of a lot of fun too, to be able to have somebody to instantly share something with that's going to get as excited as you are about a piece. you know, and because nobody has all the money, but there's plenty of art to have, I can get excited about, Bill, for you getting a piece that I know you love, you know, and are passionate about. And so so yeah, it's very fun in there. And I want to thank also Mike Berkey, because I had the cover to one of the Avengers, you know, with the Windsor Smith at 98, 99, and 100. And I was able to buy on time payments the cover it's John Buscema and Barry Smith. And so it's a little hard to, it's not clear on either. I mean, you can tell, but but that cover sat on his site for a long time at 50,000.
Right.
And I reached out to him finally and I said, "Hey, will you take time payments on it?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I was getting ready to pull it down and then I'll bring it back later," and was going to ask more for it. But it was insane that nobody was buying it. And so, again, I think my lovely wife is watching, and thanks to her for putting up with all this nonsense of letting me buy all this stuff and that I love. And like I said, I hate to be in debt, but when stuff like that happens, you got to jump on it. So so it's fun.
Yeah, no, Mike is the king of recycling. You know, he'll pull something down if it's been up there for too long, and then put it up again as new, and it's funny, it works. I know like some people can't do that, right? I mean, Anthony has 28,000 pieces of original art on his website. He is not going to go back and do that. But Mike, who really kind of curates what he shows on his site, he's very particular about those things. He kind of I know he goes back and checks things, and when it's been on the site too long, he'll take it down and put it up as new again, and it usually works. And maybe he'll adjust the price one way or another, and usually it sells. It's funny, but it works for him. And I know that some people give him a hard time for that. They're like, that's been on your site for so many years, but it tends to work. So
yeah, no, it makes it fresh and puts it in front of your eyes again, which is great. So
yeah, but it's funny, I've heard so many stories too, and not just related to Mike's site, where collectors, and because I've done this, where I'll go back and just keep checking, is that piece still there? And am I going to pull the trigger this time after looking at it? And it's funny. I mean, since I've known so many dealers, it happens a lot where a guy, he'll say they'll sell something, and then the next day they'll be like, I really was ready to buy it then. Did you really sell it? And they're like, yeah. And then, but the dealer will learn that the collector had been looking at that piece for 2, 3, 4 years, just couldn't, waffling on whether or not to make that decision. So it's funny. It's a fun part of the hobby too, because it kind of just keeps you guessing, and it makes you wonder, should I be chasing this piece now, or should I be chasing this other one? Like your dilemma at the auction, you've got 2 covers that you want. Sometimes you kind of have to pursue the thing that you feel best about at that moment in time. Because again, the other cool thing is that usually something else will come along one day that you're going to like. But very, very fun.
And that's why the auctions do so well too, because that if you don't get it then, it's probably just going to be gone. And so, very, very rarely do you get the opportunity to go ahead and grab it, unless it's sold for less than it should, and then a dealer's going to grab it and then put a big premium on it. But it motivates you, and it keeps you from buying that thing that you're looking at, Bashara's site, that this one piece is actually priced well and I want it, but an auction comes up and I got to grab this first. And then like I said, years can go by, and then you're finally ready to do it, then it's gone. So
it's usually how it works.
Yeah.
We're going to step away from covers for a little bit, because I know that I had those pieces that you had talked about already, the Sienkiewicz and the Perez, but there were 2 other convention sketches that I've kind of actually put together with the piece that was kind of the inspiration for why you got those convention sketches. Yeah. So I'll show the burn first, since you did mention that one. Yeah.
And again, this is just trying to, you make things into reality, in that in 1982, everybody's getting John Byrne to draw, Phoenix and Storm and X-Men. And then I get up there and I say, I want Wonder Man. He goes, "You want Wonder Man?" I said, "Yeah." Now, can you draw him with Cap's shield? And he thought it was a weird request, but he said, "Sure." And I told him that this page was incredibly, the storyline was, Shooter did an amazing job writing Wonder Man, because he was very insecure about his powers. And as a teenager, I related to that insecurity. And so then to have Cap give him a shield, which is such a huge honor, I wanted to capture that moment. And all the brown on the top is because I did put it in a frame that had cardboard behind it, and the acid ate the paper up. But luckily, I don't know if it was 10, 15, 20 years later, I figured out, oops, and then pulled it out of there and then put some board, archival board behind it. And then it got pulled down, obviously, when the fires happened, like I said before. But I absolutely love this page. And it just, I think because I got the commission done, I ended up getting the page. And weirdly, the next one you have coming up, I ended up buying both of these pages in 2008 from commissions that I got done in 81 and 82. So it's which is funny.
Well, we'll show the other one right here now.
Yeah. And so Gil Kane was at a LA convention. And again, I loved his stuff. And that's where I screwed up as a young comic art buyer, is I didn't, if they had the original art on the table, I would go through it and buy it. But if they didn't, I would ask for commission. And it never dawned on me to say to them, you know, do you have any original art with you? And if they said no, trying to get their contact information so I didn't have to wait for Miss Iskowicz to get his little flyer booklet and get it to me in the mail. And by the time it got to the West Coast, all the art was gone that I wanted. So it, but this, I asked him to draw this, and Gil, he can be a little salty. And I said, oh, can you put him screaming in the background? He goes, oh, that'll be another $20. It's like, I don't have another $20. Just draw that. And so I absolutely love this commission. And again, you know, in 2008, I was able to buy this page one, but I think I just kind of wished it into reality. So
you seem to do that a lot.
Yeah, no, I really do. That's what and my next story is going to go into that exact same theme with the next art. Is that my favorite comic of all time is Avengers Annual #7. I just love absolutely everything about it. And then for Marvel to do their whole movie universe on my favorite comic, it's like, you know, you hear comedians and stuff say, oh, the world just revolves around me and you're all just, you know, here for my pleasure. And sometimes in the comic world, it feels like that because this stuff happens all the time. And I'm just, you know, super lucky to be able to, you know, enjoy, you know, all this art and be able to hold the thing that inspired me so much in those years. So, which is really cool.
I agree. Well, why don't we take a look at some of those these pieces here?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is, you know, again, this one's the one that's on the foam core, and part of the reason why it was so inexpensive. But this is the origins of the Soul Gems, and I just, you know, absolutely love this page, and I love almost more than a splash. In fact, definitely more than a splash is the background story pages that Jim Starlin did are the ones that I go after the heaviest, because I just love the way he lays out a page, and it just is just you know, phenomenal. So it's just very, very cool. So I was thrilled with that. I was a little disappointed in the movies that he didn't get the gems in this way, but I knew that they couldn't do it that way. The way they did it in the movie verse, I think, was very, very good. And I want to take this time because Carlo's actually on here watching. I actually got to go to a couple of the Marvel premieres because of Carlo, because he designed the World War Hulk look. I got to go to the Thor premiere, and then also got to go to the last big Avengers movie because of Carlo. So thanks, Carlo. You're the best date I've well, now Leah's going to hear this, but best date I ever had, because is where I got to go to. It was just absolutely amazing. And also, you were talking about the props earlier. I love when Carlo and Steven come stay at my house, because much later on Facebook, I'll see all my toys with them having an elf helmet on or a gauntlet on, and pictures that they put all over. And I won't know that they did it while they were drawing there and I was at work, but it just is very, very funny. So terrific individuals. And I'm with you, Nikki. So.
But you said now this one was mounted on foam core. I know that has happened in the past. So it's just, where was it purchased from?
I bought it on Heritage, and it disclosed that it was on foam core. And luckily, I bought it long enough ago on Heritage that it wasn't on a lot of people's radar. I don't remember what I paid for it, but it wasn't a lot of money. And I was absolutely thrilled, with that. So.
Wow. No, it's an amazing piece of comic history. And you're right. They couldn't have done the story quite the same way, but it all worked out in the end. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, let's look at, and this one's just another just absolutely beautiful page. And like you, I mean, this is like classic Starlin as far as the layout and the storytelling. So such a beautiful page.
Yeah. Now, and again, it just him telling the stories in the background, and he seemed to do that an awful lot. But I'm so glad that he did, because this is one of my favorite pages from the entire book. And this is the opposite effect. I ended up, because I love this so much, I think it was 10 years ago, Gerald Brom, I think I'm saying his name right. I had him do this one panel from this page and had him draw that, with Thanos, Eros, and Mentor, because I've always been a huge Eros fan. So in fact, Philip Churchill has a page from that. I think it's Warlock 12 that I have on my lot list, and he just teased me with, "Oh, I own that page," and he showed me a photocopy of it. And I said, "Would you sell it to me?" And at the end of the day, he wouldn't. So it was like kind of a bummer, but but I know where it is at least, and he's got an amazing collection, and he's a big Avengers guy and a very, very nice guy as well. So again, great people in this hobby. So.
No, I agree. And that was one of the images I didn't get, but I can share a screen here to show that.
There you go. Yeah.
Pharrell. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and Pharrell, I caught him in New York, and he didn't have a line, and he's got such a wonderful painterly style that I ended up getting one commission from him, and he said, "I'll have to mail it to you." And then I caught him at a good time, because I ended up getting 4 commissions from him, and this was the last one that I did, which I just absolutely love. And I've since decided, I don't know if it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that I have 4 kids, and none of them love comic art. And so I knew that I had way too much art, so I needed to stop. I needed to sell some of it. And so I decided that all my commission stuff, I'm going to go ahead and sell that. And that's part of the reason why I'm called Patron of Art, because I'm having the art created. I'm paying for it to be created, but I'm letting it loose in the world, so I'm just kind of, doing that. That's what, resonated with me. And so, but this is one of the pieces I've actually kept, along with some of my old stuff that I got in the 80s and such, just because I love it so much. So I don't know if my wife wants any more kids, Jeffrey. I wanted 6, and she said, "Oh, you can find another wife." And it's like, no, I kind of like you, so I'll stop at 4. So, yeah.
Oh man! So what was you knew that panel was the one that you wanted to have him work on, or was that
it's just because I love that panel so much from that book that I showed that to him, and he recreated it in full color and the whole thing, and I think he did a terrific job of it. So very, very happy with it.
No, it's a beauty. Let's see here. It's a little different, but I like this one as well. I love the panel structure on this page.
Yeah, and this is also where Starlin just laid this book out. But this is where Avengers Annual 7 is my favorite book. Giant Size Defenders 3 is my second favorite story, my book. And so that's what I'm throwing it out there in the world now, that Korvac should be the main villain in the next Marvel movie thing, because he's powerful enough for everybody to take him on. And and it's funny that I was thinking about that. Now they've brought Kang out, so so I think it would be really cool that if they made him the next villain. So if they end up doing that, you heard it here first.
And yes, Nick Ferrucci's commenting that it's got Daredevil and Submariner on the page. So
Absolutely,
twice as jealous.
And I'll throw out there that I'm just like Nick is. I'm a huge Don Newton fan.
Mm-hmm.
And Don Newton inked some of the pages in this book, and they're stunning over Starlin's pencils, but they're really hard to find those pages. I don't know if somebody's hoarding them, or hopefully, God forbid, they didn't get lost somewhere. But I'd love this book, and I do have multiple pages from it, and it would love to find some of the Don Newton inked pages. I only have one.
So, that's the other cool thing about this hobby. It's not like comic book collecting where it's pretty easy to find a copy in the grade that you want. But in here, so you already you had to do some research to see if Don Newton ever had them or maybe misplaced them, and this already. I mean, it's not something that's common knowledge to everybody, because it's a piece of art that you were really interested in. You've done the legwork as far back as you can go to people who either bought from him or maybe repped him at different times, or at the very least, you went right back to the source. And I think that's a really fun part of the hobby as far as the stories go, because you really have to go back and talk with the creators. I mean, it's so different than buying comics from a comic art dealer or a comic book dealer, just because there's a chase involved. And but also, it's on the other side where people have to they resource how they find original comic art. I mean, I know of collectors that regularly look at Craigslist in at least New York City and LA, those sites, because they're just hopeful one day that that they don't want to leave those opportunities out there for some other collector who might be trying to source the same places or things, or online classified. So it's a really fun part of the hobby, is getting to know where things are and who has what, and whether or not something's ever been on the market before.
Mm-hmm. And Rich, he comes up with stuff all the time that I wonder, how the hell did he find this? And so I don't know, Rich, if you're a great detective, or whether you just got some really good luck, because you've come across some amazing stuff, and sold some of it to me. Thank you.
Let's see. We're going to take a look at something a little different, but a amazing piece as well.
Yeah, this I've got a big story behind, because I believe it was 1983 that Michael Golan came to the Anaheim Convention Center. And again, for whatever reason, I had $300 in my pocket, and I beelined it to him, grabbed his portfolio, went through the pages, and this book had just come out, and I absolutely loved it with the Terry Austin inks and the whole thing. And so, and if you find this page on my CAF, you'll see all the other pages that I ended up buying 3 pages, and this was the 4th page that I wanted. And I said, will you sell me these 4 for $300? And he said, I'll sell you 3 for $300. And so then I countered, okay, if I buy the 3, will you do me a sketch? And he said, yes. So this was the page I didn't get. And I immediately went, again with Brian Haverling, we went to that Shrine show. And within just a few months, I was going to San Diego State at the time. Again, didn't have any money. And I sold one of the pages for, I believe, $150, $125, $175, something like that. And, I thought, I was thrilled. And then I think the next Comic-Con, I had the page 1 from this book that I had. And I walked around to every art dealer, and everybody said that was the best piece of art at the convention. Again, I had no money, and foolishly I sold it, and I did sell that for $300. And so I made the extra. I had the extra money. I had that paid for. I still had a page left, and then I had my sketch. And then later, I ended up selling the 3rd page. And now these pages are terribly expensive. I just This one I got within the last year. I paid a lot of money for it. I don't remember if it was 12 grand or what it was, but it was 12 or 15. I don't remember, but it was super expensive, and I had the best page, and I sold it. But I still have the sketch, which would probably be worth a lot more had Michael Golden not come back on the scene, but he did. Gladly, he's a terrific artist. But it, so I don't know if you grabbed the Wolverine or not.
I did. Yep.
Terrific. But I will say, and I don't want to speak ill of anybody, when Michael Golden did it, I gave him the $300. He says, the only thing I asked you, and he says, don't have, and he called Rubenstein a derogatory name, him ink it. And it pissed me off that he did it. So being the type of person that I am, I went directly over to Rubenstein and had him ink it.
No.
And so I think I borrowed money from probably Brian to get it inked for, I don't know, $10 or 15, whatever it was. But it's just kind of funny. So I've had this in my collection for a long, long time. And and so this used to represent the pages I didn't have. And luckily I now have one of the pages. So.
Wow. So did you actually walk from Michael Golden's table over to Joe's?
Luckily he was around a corner, and I think Michael picked his stuff up and left. He was an interesting guy back then because he didn't have a lot of patience. He wasn't great with people. And I know that he left the business shortly thereafter and was painting vans in Florida, airbrushing vans, because he just got tired of the politics. This is what I've heard. I don't know this firsthand. It's secondhand information. The politics in the comic industry. But I sure just absolutely loved his art. And the Avengers Annual, I think it was 10 that I mentioned earlier, that Rich sold me a page from. This Doctor Strange 55 and that Avengers Annual, I loved those, the art in those books. And so in this period, I wasn't a big Micronauts fan, or the NAM or any of that. So, but those books I loved. So I wanted to share those.
Well, you didn't tell Joe Rubenstein that he didn't, that Michael didn't want him to ink it, right?
No, I didn't, because I didn't want to aggravate him and then have him do a bad job.
Right.
But it is funny just what a uppity kid I was. So.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have done that, but it's giving you a story. Well, and you're never going to sell that piece because of that story.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true.
And yeah, no, I'm looking at the golden art in your CAF gallery. So yeah, that Defenders 96 cover is pretty amazing.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, and I was shocked when that came up for sale, and it just when you said pull out 17 pieces, it's like only 17 because there's so many that I just absolutely love. But it that's a one of it's, I always try and play games with yourself. Okay, you can only keep 20 pieces of art. What are you gonna keep? That definitely would be one of them. It's
heck yeah,
amazing. It just doesn't have a story like the other ones do.
Right. No, well, but yeah, so anybody who's checking out Kirk's gallery tonight, you have to check out the just filter it by Michael Golden, and you'll see the 5 pieces that are in there. But that Defenders cover is breathtaking.
Yeah, I love it. And speaking of Defenders covers,
yes,
I implore everybody to have a want gallery, because a White Knight, maybe it might be Dick Barucci, he was in my case, saw that this was one of my favorite covers. And so he let me know that he had the cover, and that although he loved it, he knew that I loved it more than he did. And he, at a very reasonable price, he sold this to me. And so, Nick, I just can't thank you enough, because I absolutely love this cover. And so, and if it wasn't for my want gallery, I wouldn't have it. So
there you go. Everybody should make a want list on CAF, right? I mean, it actually works. And I hear that a lot too, that, it's something that we don't promote too much, but I do think that a lot of people have gotten inquiries from, because I tell people that too, when I get inquiries about, hey, where do I sell this? I'll send them the link to the want list and whatnot. But you never know. I don't go search it, ahead of time to see if there's actually going to be any hits on it. But I think it's proven fruitful for people who've taken the opportunity to put that out there. And some people even use CAF, and they'll make a gallery room and put a few scans in there. I mean, I've been lenient when it's from a premium member and they're supporting the site one way or another to kind of get their real Grail pieces out there that they're looking for. But that's great.
Yeah, and there's a John Buscema Avengers cover in his second run with Firelord on it that I put in my walk gallery, and then that came up in one of the auctions, and I had one, if not two people, reach out to me and say, "Hey, just so you know, this is," and I was already aware, but it was so nice of those people to reach out and say, "This piece you really want is on auction," and I was able to buy it and do it and all that stuff. And so, thanks, Nick. I appreciate it, buddy. Yeah, it's fun bumping into Nick at cons because he's got such a background with all the people in the industry, and just seeing him with who he dines with, I'd love to be a fly in the wall and listen to some of the conversations because it's very, very fun. But thank Nick. I really do appreciate it. So
no. Nick and I have a few things in the works, everybody. I'm not going to tell you what they are yet, but there are going to be some fun, interesting projects for next month, and then at the beginning of the year that I can't wait to share with everybody. Nick is a fantastic guy, and I'm very grateful to call him friend. Mm-hmm. So, but I haven't sat at any of those dinners yet either. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what was the next down here. But I mean, the golden pieces. I mean, I have yet to own a piece of art by Michael Golden, and it's something that I definitely regret because it's tough to get now. Really, I mean, anything that's nice and published. And I did like the Micronauts a lot, and I don't know if I'd lean that way or Avengers 10. That'd probably be the way I should probably go if I ever wanted to. But those are hard to come by and don't come up. They aren't available that often anymore.
Absolutely.
And there we go. This one I want to know about. Yeah, this is such an amazing cover. I'm so jealous of this one.
This is so bittersweet. The owner of this, again, I'm not sure he wants me to say his name or not, but he just emailed me regarding some other pages. Literally, his name just flashed by 15 minutes ago. But I got this, and I didn't know who he was at the time. And I got this email saying, "Hey, are you interested in owning a Warlock cover?" And it's like, Warlock is one of my very favorite characters. Jim Starlin is my favorite overall artist, where Gil Kane is my favorite cover artist. And Fish is a great guy. And so I said casually, "Sure, what issue?" And he said 14. And this is one of my favorite covers of all the Warlock covers. And so, I was waiting for the shoe drop. I said, "What do you want for it?" And he said, "Oh, I want to trade." And then I really got nervous. Because he I wouldn't say he fleeced my gallery, because I went to my guys that I go to and said, "Rob, this is what he wants. What does this add up to money-wise? And what do you think this is worth?" But what he ended up doing is my beloved Hulk painting, with Namor and Hulk from the Rampaging Hulk cover. He wanted that. I had recently, meaning in the last 2 or 3 to 4 years, bought the Marvel Preview 14 cover, which is a Jim Starlin Star-Lord painting. The only thing I didn't like about it is the gal in the back had a big afro, which I thought was weird. Jim Starlin likes drawing girls with afros, I guess, especially back then. But the painting was stunning. So he wanted that painting as well. And then I had an Avenger Annual 7-page that Jim he'd only inked a few of the pages in that book. And it was a full team shot. And I absolutely loved that page, but he wanted that. And then he wanted, there was 2 other things that weren't a big, there was a Michael Zulli Elric that I commissioned that turned out really cool. He wanted that one. And then he also wanted a Craig Hamilton. He did one of those gigantic commissions that were full color with all the cosmic characters. And 75% of it I loved, but 25% of it, he didn't interpret the characters the way I necessarily liked. And so that one wasn't painful to get rid of. And the Zulli wasn't that painful to get rid of, but the other 3 pieces were like pulling teeth, and especially that Hulk painting, Rampaging Hulk. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't have a Warlock cover if it wasn't for it. So he made me pay for it. But so basically, I wanted to bring this cover up not only because I absolutely love it, but because it's sometimes trading is painful. But at the end of the day, I'm thrilled that I own this piece. So
it must have been. I mean, the Hulk cover must have been really, 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 really difficult to let go of. I mean, because it had meant so much to you. It was something that you like you said earlier when you were very young. You said, "I am going to own that cover," and you did, and now you don't. In order to get this one.
and my wife, who made me move the painting a couple times because she hated it, she even said, "You love that painting. What are you doing?" And it's like, but I've had it for decades, and I really want this, and I think I need to let it go. So, yeah, Nick, you're absolutely right. It's a blessing, but boy, was it painful. So, just ouch. So,
wow.
And it's funny because he also offered an unpublished version of this cover that was really cool too, and I was so enamored with this, I didn't negotiate hard enough by saying you need to throw that in or there's no deal, because I didn't want him to go, okay, I'll give it to somebody else. So I just I folded, and so I don't know what happened to that other. It's probably still in his collection, I'm guessing.
So something like that. I mean, obviously, it took a while to get the deal done. I mean, what was the time frame? Do you think? I mean, did it take a week, a month? I mean, because you had to make some tough decisions there.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess, it probably was a 3-week process.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in doing that there's, because it was really tough, and I told him I had to think about it, and he said, take your time. And he's always been very good about giving me plenty of time to make up my mind on different things, so which is good.
Right. I know. Is that one where you turned to your friends and said, "Am I making the right decision?"
Absolutely, yeah. I at the time when I got it, I guessed that Warlock cover was worth about $40,000, and what I was giving up was probably worth about $32,000 to $35,000.
Mm-hmm.
But as time has now marched on, those movies have come out. Sterling has exploded even more, and Warlock is still just in a cocoon somewhere with a bunch of golden people on. I think his pages, what I gave up, are worth a lot more now, but who knows what's going to happen in the next 5 years. So, I mean, that's what happens with our hobby. Stuff gets hot and all that. So it's
sure.
So it's interesting, but I'm very, very, very lucky to own that cover. So.
Right, and you're still dealing with the collector who you got it from too, because they, like you said, they emailed you while we've been talking.
Yeah,
and that's a good thing. See, once you're out there, people will reach out for various reasons. Whether they'll keep in touch, because at the end of the day, it is a lot about who you know in the hobby and the relationships you keep. I mean, you never want to be somebody who has a bad reputation in the hobby, because it will definitely limit your opportunities. I mean, I hate to say that, but it does come back to the fact that it is a small hobby. You can brush somebody the wrong way, do something wrong, and they'll never deal with you again unless you're a dealer.
Right.
By and large.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly. But Stanley asked about how you became a rep. That's just so you know, Stanley. I'm going to be doing a second interview, one of those recorded interviews with Kirk. And it'll be something that I post on a Friday, like I've done with other art dealers and art reps. So look for that maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll probably, when we have some time to put that together. I was going to try to do it yesterday, but I wasn't able to do that. But it'll be out there. So that story of Kirk's will be a part of the channel soon.
And I was very concerned that it'd be an oversaturation of Kirk. People can only handle it so much. So I'm glad we get a little bit of a break.
Right. Well, the thing is, and I'm sure we're going to discover it's back to you being a patron of the arts, right? I mean, I think that's something that a lot of us feel. I mean, I've talked about it before when I go to the IX show that was just last weekend that I didn't get to go to because I did go to Vegas. I love being a patron at the show. I love spreading my money around and making sure that I can buy as many pieces as I can. They're not going to be big. They're usually smaller pieces, but just to be able to go and patronize creators and be able to take those home and then In some cases, I've sold a few. I've probably kept most of them. But the idea being that, you know, you're supporting the hobby in a way that really, you know, works for you, and, you know, I'm doing it in the way that works for me, and everyone else is as well. I mean, I think there's nothing more satisfying than buying a piece of art directly from a creator or their rep when they're repped. I think at the end of the day, that just makes it so much. I don't know. There's just something about handing cash to somebody who made something that lets them know they really appreciate it, that you appreciate what they've done. That makes me feel good when I'm doing it.
No, absolutely, 100%, and it is the most satisfying when you're dealing directly with the artist, and you know that they're, you know, they say, you know, you made my show. I mean, it's weird that I'll go into it more so in the other thing, but, you know, David Finch was at San Diego Comic-Con, and he's sitting there by his table, and at this point he was doing Cyberforce, and nobody was talking to him, and I knew him because of, you know, the past, and so I went, looked through pages, and apparently I bought the only page he sold, I believe, at that particular convention, and he shared with me, "Thank you so much for buying it." He was so appreciative, and, you know, now he's this huge superstar. But it just, everybody starts their career somewhere. Simone Bianchi says I'm one of the very first people that ever commissioned him, and it turned out terrible. It was just a brown watercolor mess of Goliath. But the fact that we connected, and all these years later, I've been able to get stuff from him and do all that bit, and just a super sweet guy, which is nice. And so it, yeah, just all the friendships you make along the way. And they're, David Chua is a friend that now my wife has been dealing with him because she's a realtor. If anybody needs a real estate agent in LA, she can take care of you. But, you know, David is buying, and now he's selling something with her, and it just the friendships that you make. And David's got a great collection, and it's off topic, but he's buying Magic the Gathering stuff now, and that's some incredible art in there as well. So
yeah, no, it is, and that's a market that's really taking off. I mean, in the last couple of years, it's been amazing. The prices on not only vintage artwork created for Magic the Gathering, but current. You know, there's a few artists out there that, you know, that have, well, I know a few of them have been selling on eBay and whatnot, or in these Magic the Gathering groups, and it's so impressive. But it took a while, didn't it? I mean, you figure, how long has Magic the Gathering been out there, and that artwork was almost worth nothing, and then the last 4 or 5 years, I think just the few Facebook groups that I follow for that artwork, because I'm not a player and I've never played Magic the Gathering, so I don't have a soft spot, you know, in my heart for it. I actually do own some pieces because I bought them at IX when I could get them for $100. I just was like, wow, this is a cool piece of artwork, you know, and but now you couldn't touch a piece of Magic the Gathering artwork for that.
As I'll talk about in a little bit, Therese Nielsen's a buddy of mine, but she had to go to eBay to sell her art because she had no idea what it was worth anymore. Mm-hmm. And there was one convention, Comic-Con, like I think 2 or 3 years ago, where that week she put a piece on every 3 days and let it sit for a week. And she went from selling stuff for $3,000 a piece to where these were going for 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 each. And every week they were climbing. And it was just absolutely insane that in that little bit of time we were hanging out together, she made $100,000 on 4 paintings. And it's like, good for her. You know, it just, that's, you know, I love it when artists make a lot of money. That's what it should be all about, especially when they're bringing everybody so much joy.
I completely agree.
No.
So let's, this is a good transitioning point because we've got 3 paintings to talk about now.
Yeah. So this one is very funny, that they're funny and interesting. If you can go back to my face for a quick second.
Sure.
I bought this book and devoured this book in 1977, I think it was. Yeah, 77. In those days, this little poster came inside of it. And so this poster has been in my room and by every computer I've had since 1977. And so then one day you can go back to the painting now if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
I don't know if I was playing a game with my 19-year-old or just I was working and he was working. I was working from home, but I looked at the little poster that was there up on the wall and had been there for years. And I thought, I wonder if this is on CAF. And so sure enough, it was on CAF. And so, I sent an email to the guy and I said, would you be willing to sell it? And he goes, nah, I really don't want to sell it. And I said, are you sure? And he goes, people have made me offers before. And I said, can I make an offer? And he said, sure. So I offered him what I thought was a very strong price of $25,000. And he says, that's a really nice offer, but I don't want to sell it. And I said, well, what would you take? And this is one of those things, because this literally is a Grail piece to me more than any other piece that I own, because I've had this book, read this book, lived with this poster, and just absolutely, love it. He said, what, I said, what would it take? He goes, oh, over 40,000. So I said, I'll pay you 41,000. And he said, really? And I said, yeah, because I had to have it. And the funny thing is, this guy's drug this thing out for months. And while we talked about this, which helped me get to this point too, was that I didn't know that Ken Kelly was, I believe, the stepson of Frank Frazetta.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank Frazetta actually got help get Ken Kelly this series of book covers. And according to this gentleman, he talked to Ellie, Frank's wife, and she had said that Frank actually helped him with these paintings. And so there's an excellent chance that Frank Frazetta at least tutored or did some brushwork on this painting. And the funny thing that I've always liked Ken Kelly's work, but I love his first work, which were these Berkeley book covers. And I can't help but think it's not unlike Bill Sienkiewicz looking like Neil Adams and then moving on to his own style, that this was, he was probably aping Frank with a little bit of Frank's help. And it's a big, beautiful painting. And it just, my wife lets me hang that in the bedroom, despite the blood and the dying people and everything. So it's, yeah. So
you get to look at it every day. That's the important thing.
Every single day. And when I open up the curtains, the light, it shines right on it. And it just, so it's just really a phenomenally beautiful piece and incredibly nostalgic piece for me as well. So I wanted to share that.
But you picked it up about a year ago, right? I mean,
yeah, right about a year ago. And this is what kind of is screwed up my finances, because it was so expensive. And just trying to recover, trying to pay for that and do all that bit. But it was, so my point to collectors out there, that if there's something that you love that much, beg, borrow, don't steal, but make it happen, because I just absolutely love it. So.
Right. And those opportunities don't happen all the time, especially but it's funny though, that you went to CAF. Could it be on CAF?
Yeah, and he didn't have hardly anything else, but he had that. And even though he kind of said no multiple times, but then I know all about him and his family and his property and his retirement, the whole thing. Super nice guy, but I was just patient, and we got there, and he was thrilled, and and I'm thrilled. So very lucky. Okay, so then Rich is saying that Ken Kelly is a nephew of Frank's wife Ellie, right? Okay, I knew there was a relationship somewhere, and that was
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh man. Well, all right, we've got a couple more pieces to look at, and let's see here. This is a beauty.
Yeah, and again, this is Therese Nielsen's a very good friend of ours. More so was. Now she's moved out of the States, so we don't get together all the time like we used to. But I'm, again, big into role-playing games, and Therese did a whole bunch of 7th Sea, which was a pirate role-playing game that I loved and my friends love, and incidentally, my friends that I played with in junior high school, I still play D&D with them. So it's fun after all these years. But so Lee and I decided when we got married that, most people get a wedding photographer, spend a few $1,000s, you've got all these pictures in a book, and nobody looks at the book. So instead we said, hey, Therese, how about if you do like the 7th Sea paintings, you do one of Leah and I and my two kids from a previous marriage in the exact same format. And so she ended up doing that. So this is just, imploring people that when you do commissions that are expensive, go for it, make it personal, because it's very fun to do. And it's very fun that I think that was how I looked 21 years ago. And my two kids that she totally nailed. And then Leah, it's funny that Leah had to have her fix her face and make her boobs smaller because she was trying to make her a little too
voluptuous
romance cover, so it's very, very funny. So it's very fun. So anyhow, that was our wedding portrait instead of the photographer. And we did have a Renaissance wedding and everybody came in costumes. It was wonderful. So it's very fun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's totally cool.
Yeah. It was really neat. And we were able to do it in an area that was all surrounded, like it was a pool area, but it was all surrounded with this really great stone and all this great metal work. And it just totally cool. And we even got our preacher came dressed as a Franciscan monk because he thought it was a fun idea. So it was very cool. Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive. I had Elvis give Maureen away to me in Las Vegas, so I think that would have been equally as fun, if not more fun.
Yeah, good. It's funny what we dorks do.
Exactly. But so I think this is another commission piece that we're going to talk about. It's the last piece of art we got from an artist whose work I really admire. Well, I've gotten to see some of his work in person, going to the IX shows. He's exhibited there once when I went, but this is a wonderful painting by Brom.
Yeah, so Brom is incredibly nice guy, and somebody also that I'd read some of the TSR D&D books that he did some covers for, and so the first time he came to a San Diego Comic-Con, I went right to him, was able to buy a couple of paintings. And then he gave me his contact information. And the first commission I did with him was this really cool Elric, which is on CAF. And he's on the front of a prow of a ship. And in fact, it's behind me over here. I don't know if anybody's noticed or not, but the second one I did was a Conan on the prow of a ship. And then I was going to keep with that theme, but then as we were batting ideas around, he really liked the idea of doing Morgan Le Fay. And if you look at it closely, by her head right up, one of the shields that's hanging in the tree is actually the same shield on the Therese Nielsen painting that I've been able to work that shield into a couple of my commissions and stuff, which is really fun. But it's nice that Brom paid me a huge compliment in that he said the paintings that we do together always turn out better because of our collaboration to put the ideas of putting stuff together. And then the fourth one I did was a Titania, which is absolutely stunning. So if people like Gerald Brom's work, they should definitely go to my gallery and check it out, because I've been very lucky that the Elric painting, he ended up then later making it a cover to an Elric book that's coming out, I believe next month. The Conan painting I did, he ended up making that a book cover. He uses Morgan Le Fay for the cover of his art book, and we'll see if he does anything with the Titania. But it's very, very cool stuff. And this was the last bit of it's just nice having talented friends. And Brom is also a D&D guy too, which is fun. And he's got a couple kids that are the same age as my older kids. And so just a terrific, nice person. And his wife, Laura Lee, is a very talented artist as well. So.
Wow. No, that's great. Then I linked to your CAF gallery to show off the other pieces that you had commissioned from him. But no, Brom's one of my favorite artists too. A lot of people have said his colors are too muddy or whatnot. But I love his work. I mean, nobody, if those are muddy colors, I'll take that any day. Because he's a master of the figure and of just the tones in his painting I've just always loved, and I there's just been something about his work that always kind of spoke to me, and I really admire the pieces you've got in your collection, and you're right, that titanium piece is amazing. So,
and it's so 18th century, pre-Raphaelite looking. I mean, he said he was nervous to show it to me because he goes, I kind of went in a different direction, and to me, every piece he does for me is better than the last one. And there's not a lot of artists that have been in the business for so long and just continue to get better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody rest on the laurels, and it's really, he is just an amazing talent. So,
wow.
Yeah.
It pays to have good friends, and especially those who are creators as well. Yeah, because I've seen Brom at San Diego. He's usually, when I've seen him, he's usually been like with John Flesk from Flesk Publishing, right? I mean, because they did a book together.
The last several years, he's just been doing that and not schlepping art with him. But the first couple times that he came, he either brought a bunch of art and just kept it under the table, or he had a list of it, and then you'd have to look up what it looked like. But and then at that point you would seal the deal with him, and then he'd mail it to you later and doing that. So
interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kirk, I can't tell you, this has been a lot of fun, man. I mean, and knowing how big your collection is, we could have actually done 2 of these. So maybe in a few years we'll do another one, and you'll have to pick another 16, 18 pieces. So
I would talk about it. It has been a lot of fun. I'd absolutely love to do that. And it just, again, I wanted to thank you because I've got such a huge passion for this, and I've got a lot of friends because of you. Olivier, who lives in Belgium, who we wouldn't be good buddies if it wasn't for comic art. And now Olivier works at Heritage. So now I have a buddy that's inside of Heritage that can help me navigate some of their zany stuff that's going on, and just, all the other people that I don't think I missed anybody. But just, it's nice that they're, I hold you responsible for a lot of my, because you don't make a lot of friends when you get older, because your friends are already kind of established.
Right.
So in the second half of life, to be able to pick up, another dozen, friends that are close friends that you really like and have a lot of, and, Jordan's another one too. It's a great guy, that I've met in Hawaii because of comic art and the whole thing. And it's a really wonderful hobby, and Eric as well, so, but anyhow, I'll be quiet now and thank you, and be happy to
No, well, trust me, when I built the site, it was only just to have a place to show off more of your artwork collections. I never really thought about the social aspect of it. And I think and I've only really learned about how many connections were made since I started doing these live interviews with people. Nobody ever came up to me and said, wow, I've met a lot of people thanks to CAF, or anything like that. I don't know. Nobody ever said it. And I never really thought about it. I always just felt I was a failure in those ways. But at the end of the day, it turned out that, no, I mean, a lot of people have made good connections, have created great friendships, and groups of collectors that, kind of, form their own, I don't know, buying pools that, because they have the similar interests. And CAF was never really built with those sorts of things in mind, the things that you would normally expect from a social media site, like a Facebook or an Instagram, and building up those sorts of things. So I never approached it like that, but it's been very gratifying to know that a lot of connections and friendships have been made because of the site. It means a lot to me to know that CAF was a lot more than I ever thought it was going to be. And it was, not my intent, but it makes me want to try harder, because I feel like there's more things that could be done to help, collectors get to know one another a little bit better, now that I know that it has been going.
Yeah, no, and I can guarantee that, myself included, but a lot of these guys that are on here, this is the social network for us. It's like Facebook, whatever, Instagram, I'm not on it, let alone TikTok or any of that nonsense, but it just,
me neither.
But it's like Steve Morger's another wonderful human being. He saw that I was a big, there was a Val Kilmer Hercules story that was in the back of one of those magazines. And I bought a bunch of pages, and then he reached out to me and said, I have several pages from this. Do you want to buy them? And I said, well, I'm embarrassed to say, but when I bought a whole bunch of them, they were pretty expensive. And he goes, oh, I don't care what you pay me. He goes, just pay me the average cost of the page just to help me try to put this book together. And it just, what a nice guy,
Mm-hmm.
So just absolutely amazing.
No, I agree. Steve's one of the best people I've ever met in the hobby. He's such a giving guy. He has wonderful ideas. I mean, when we did Big Wow together, that was I look back on that as some of the best memories I've had in the hobby. Was just getting to interact with him and the thing that he created. He was a great promoter and kind of showman. He had a really good vision for that show to be an artist focused thing. And like you just said, I've heard similar things being said about just pay me something that's fair. He's somebody who just really approaches the hobby in a very, I don't know, in a way that we don't see too many collectors or dealers approach the hobby. And so, I appreciate everything about him. And he has that wonderful show in Italy now that I haven't gotten to go to. That I hope one day I can.
Invited to that with one of my guys or something, because that looks amazing. So, well,
you just got to put it out there, Kirk. I think that you would probably get an invite, and sure, of course. I mean, that I don't know if I'm ready to travel to Italy yet, but because I was really hoping that this was going to be the year 2022 when I'd get to go to the show, but I'm probably going to have to wait at least 1 or 2 more years, I think, before I'd want to travel. But yeah, I mean, he knows how to put on a good show. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm gonna end with another regret that Big Wow, the first one I went to, I think was 2007. I don't know if you were involved then, but Philip Kane and I went, and then Albert Moy had the cover to Avengers 137, which is Whirlwind. It's got Jan in her hospital robe, and you've got Yellow Jacket there. Amazing Gil Kane cover. And he wanted $12,000 for it. And the real estate market had just taken a dump. And I just knew it wasn't responsible to buy it. And to this day, it's like, I'm sure I could have figured it out, but it's just like, what a bummer. But anyhow, that's what makes all these other things so sweet, or because they did happen when you've got all these regrets and stuff that didn't. And so but anyhow, it's been fun. But thank you for your time, and I appreciate you inviting me, to the show.
No, Kirk, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation that we'll record and share with everybody as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure. And again, if there's ever anything that I can do for you, please let me know. I mean, I'm just I've always been a fan of your collection in particular. I mean, it's one that I've gone back to. It's one of those. I probably got about 30-40 collections kind of bookmarked on a separate Chrome list that I kind of go back and look at. And yours is one of them, because I've always, I don't know, you're in that same period of that I am, as far as like when we were buying books off the spinner racks and whatnot. And so I've always admired the work that's in there. And I think I just think it's wonderful that you're willing to share all of these great pieces, and you're very open about your collection, and even through the descriptions that you write about the art too. I think that's sometimes overlooked when people are adding art to their CAF galleries, to not really talk about who they thank for helping them score this great piece of artwork, or why this artwork was really important to them. But I always appreciate that, people who take the time to give me more than one sentence about why they picked up that artwork. And I think you've always done a great job of that.
Thank you. Cool.
All right, everybody. Well, yeah, thanks, Kirk. I appreciate it. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. It's been a wonderful night. I'm glad to be back from Vegas, and I look forward to the rest of the shows this week. And again, Kirk, thank you so much. And you and I will be talking again very soon.
I'm looking forward to it. Okay.
All right, everybody. Good night.